A variety of fish and stingrays have been washing up dead on shores across the San Francisco Bay Area, leaving rotting carcasses accompanied by a suffocating smell. The culprit? A blooming of toxic algae that began in late July.
We came down and investigated and identified a species of algae known as Heterosigma akashiwo, which is known to form red tide algal blooms. That's what was causing the discolored water here. Because this bloom is known to be associated with fish kills where it turns into a bloom in other places across the world, we were concerned that a fish kill might start here. And then early last week, reports started coming in of dead fish washing up on the shore of the San Mateo coastline and other places around the bay.
Rosenfield said the cause is the high amounts of treated wastewater dumped into the bay by the 40 wastewater treatment centers near the region. Wastewater has nitrogen and phosphorus, which accelerates growth of algae. God Weiss, chief scientist with Blue Green Water Technologies, told NTD that algae blooms are natural and common.
Algae and cyanobacteria are part of the environment. They produce most of the oxygen we breathe. The problem is not that they're there in the water. The problem is when they take over, when they form a bloom.
However, algae absorbs oxygen at night. Weiss says too much algae can cause oxygen levels to drop to the point of suffocating marine life. Another phenomenon that occurs when there's too much algae are toxic red tides.
Some of the algae, similar to some of the cyanobacteria, can produce toxins. First and foremost, they can produce toxins that can harm the environment, people, fish, and the rest of the animals there.
During a red tide, the water turns red-brown in color. In the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Control Board determined that the algae bloom that killed the fish and wildlife was a red tide. The water board suspects that toilet flushing may have sent an abundance of nutrients into the bay, leading to the red tide. Water Board Chief Officer Eileen White said at a press conference in late August, "If you flush the toilet, you're sending nutrients to local wastewater treatment plants that discharge to San Francisco Bay." White said all discharges into the bay meet current effluent limits, though nutrient loads have been increasing. But Weiss says more investigation is needed to determine whether liquid waste is really to blame.
The organisms, cyanobacteria and algae, do need nutrients. Waste product is a source of it. Rather, if that was the case in this particular incident, I am not sure. It needs to be investigated. But besides just flushing, or as you mentioned, the waste being poured into the bay, those are natural organisms that have been in the environment, in the waters for years, decades, centuries, millions of years. Having a bloom is a phenomenon that happens on occasion when conditions are just right.
Although algae blooms can be harmful, Weiss says there are solutions to control them.
If you have early indications for the bloom, certainly when you see it start to dominate the water, you can treat. And we have a LAGAR technology, which is a buoyant product that allows the active material to float on the surface, move around with winds and currents, and basically chase the bloom around. Using that in advance before the bloom takes over could have allowed the fish to live.
But the San Francisco Water Board is taking a different approach. It's analyzing data collected about current nutrient load numbers and the science of red tide before possibly setting new effluent limits. Back in 2018, the Water Board tasked all wastewater utilities to study alternatives to dumping in the bay and upgrade equipment. The upgrades would cost an estimated $14 billion to implement. Red tides are not a problem unique to the Bay Area. Weiss says algae blooms could be occurring more frequently worldwide, or the increase in reports could be that people are paying more attention to them now compared to before.